my friends, gather here with me for a while and allow an old man to spin a long reflection on a most pressing matter, how we, as men navigating the many twists of adult life, can recognize when a partner or prospective partner fails to treat us with the respect and sincerity we deserve. The world today is rife with illusions about love, peppered by social media highlights and fleeting encounters that seldom scratch the surface of genuine companionship. But in the quiet moments of real life, the everyday scenes of shared meals, stressful workdays, and intangible burdens, we come to see the subtle behaviors that speak volumes about how another person values us, or does not. Now, if you are new here, please like the video and subscribe. Statistics show that only 15% of my audience is subscribed to the channel, so if this content has helped you in any way, I ask you to subscribe and hit the notification bell. I, for one, have spent decades traveling the roads of relationships, experiencing joyous highs that warmed my spirit and sorrowful lows that nearly broke it. Now, with hair whitened by time, my inclination is to speak as plainly as I can about these matters. And so, let me share the vantage of an old Stoic man, weaving in the lessons gleaned from philosophers both ancient and more modern, describing how a man might discern whether he is truly cherished or taken for granted. The goal is not to sow cynicism or pit men against women. Instead, I aim to illuminate the subtle signals, the 6 behaviors that indicate she's not valuing you in the right way, so that you, whether 25 or 65, can maintain your self-respect, hold fast to your moral bearings, and avoid the regret of investing heart and soul in a dynamic that drains you. Stoicism, that ancient approach to life, taught me that one should neither demonize nor idealize external forces, including romantic partners. Rather, we strive for clarity and acceptance. Clarity in seeing what is truly happening, acceptance in recognizing that we control only our own judgments and actions, not the choices of another. When we see that a woman's conduct consistently undermines our dignity or sense of reciprocity, Stoicism encourages us to remain calm, reflect on the nature of the relationship, and act in accordance with reason and virtue. We do not respond with rage or bitterness, but with self-awareness that we can and should engage only in bonds that foster mutual respect. Sometimes that means calmly confronting the behaviors. Other times it means quietly exiting a union that has become toxic. In either case, knowledge is the first step. Therefore, let me begin unraveling these quiet, sometimes insidious behaviors that reveal an absence of genuine valuation. I recall a memory from my middle years when I was newly remarried after a tumultuous first marriage that ended in a swirl of misunderstandings. My second wife was clever, charming, so outwardly warm that for a long while I ignored subtle signs that my opinions were rarely heard, my aspirations consistently belittled. At gatherings, she would make small jokes at my expense, explaining them away as just teasing. Over time, my sense of self eroded bit by bit, though I tried to dismiss the unease. I told myself I was being overly sensitive, that Stoic men do not let petty jests rattle them. But the problem was not the jokes alone. It was the underlying attitude that my perspective, my feelings, my personhood simply did not command her respect. That is how it often begins, in small, easy-to-overlook gestures that accumulate over months or years until you realize you have been sidelined in your own relationship. Let me speak now in broad strokes about such behaviors. The first I'd highlight, less as a bullet point, more as a quiet phenomenon, is the repeated trivialization of your words and needs. You share your concerns or insights about an issue, and she dismisses them as unimportant or changes the subject as though you never spoke. A single instance might be mere distraction or stress, but if it's a pattern, where your voice consistently goes unheard, then you have a sign that she is not placing value on your viewpoint. This can sting deeply because we men of all ages yearn to be recognized, to have our experiences matter. Stoic philosophy might caution us not to place our entire well-being in external validation, yet it also counsels that a well-functioning relationship involves reciprocity. A partner who perpetually trivializes your input erodes that reciprocity. It was precisely what I faced in that second marriage, a subtle belittling that left me feeling invisible. What makes this so insidious is how easily you can rationalize it away. You might think, she's just stressed, or I need to be more forceful. But Stoicism teaches self-awareness. Watch her patterns, see how she behaves with others. Note if your voice is singled out for disregard. If so, do not brood in silent resentment. Speak calmly about it. If she deflects or denies your feelings, or mocks them further, that indicates a deeper disregard. A Stoic response is to accept that you cannot force her to value you, but you can choose not to remain in a position that denies your self-respect. That might mean setting boundaries, demanding clarity, or, in extreme cases, stepping away from the relationship. The key is to remain level-headed, resisting both angry confrontation and passive victimhood. A second behavior, intimately connected, is the consistent overshadowing or one-upping of your achievements or struggles. Suppose you come home excited about a small victory at work, only for her to instantly shift focus to a bigger accomplishment of her own or an unconnected drama. Or you share that you've had a grueling day, seeking a bit of empathy, but she leaps into a monologue about how her day was far worse. In Stoicism, we talk of the importance of acknowledging the reality of others. If your partner never offers that simple acknowledgement, always hijacking the conversation, it signals she places her own narrative above yours. Over time, that drains the sense of partnership. You might start to hold back from sharing joys or troubles, feeling your experiences will be overshadowed. The Stoic approach is not to demand endless attention, but to expect a basic reciprocity. Each partner respects the other's emotional world. If that reciprocity is habitually absent, you see a telling sign that her valuation of you is insufficient. I recall a friend, Gaius, who ended up in precisely that dynamic. He'd mention how he landed a new client, and his partner would, within seconds, pivot to discussing her friend's bigger success story, belittling his news. He shrugged it off at first, but after a year of never being truly heard, he confided in me that he felt lonely within the relationship, as though it was always about her or some extension of her circle. That loneliness, ironically, stung more than if he had simply been alone. Stoicism teaches that a companion in life should be a fellow traveler, not an oppressor or overshadowing presence. Gaius had to decide whether to address it head-on or quietly endure. But Stoics do not advise indefinite endurance of a situation that corrodes your spirit. So Gaius, mustering his calm, told her how he felt overshadowed. She reacted with accusations, calling him overly sensitive, implying he wanted her to stroke his ego. No resolution followed. Eventually he parted ways, concluding that if she refused to see his viewpoint after multiple calm discussions, there was little hope for genuine mutual respect. This does not make her an evil person, but it suggests a mismatch in how they valued each other. Let me pivot to a third behavior, often under-acknowledged: the consistent refusal to apologize or own mistakes. We are all fallible. Stoics accept that error is part of the human condition. What matters is how we respond to those errors. If, whenever conflict arises, she twists the facts, shifts blame to you, or claims no wrongdoing whatsoever, that is a bright red flag. A strong, respectful partner admits her missteps, just as you should do with yours. In Stoicism, we talk about being accountable for the things within our control, namely, our judgments and actions. If she perpetually absolves herself of any accountability, you stand in a relationship lacking honest self-reflection on her part. Over time, that can be devastating. For instance, if she says something cruel in a heated moment and you express hurt, a partner who values you might later say, "I'm sorry, I spoke in anger." But if she denies having been cruel or ridicules you for feeling hurt, that indicates she does not respect your emotional boundaries. This is precisely the situation a cousin of mine encountered. His partner would lash out with personal insults whenever they argued, then later act as though nothing happened. When he tried to discuss it, she claimed he was overreacting, or that he triggered her, placing all blame on him. His Stoic studies told him that external events are beyond our control, but how we react is ours to shape. So he tried reacting calmly, avoiding escalation, and hoping she would see reason. She did not. Eventually, he realized that reason alone does not sway someone who is unwilling to introspect. He recognized that a partner who never acknowledges mistakes or pain inflicted is not valuing him in the right way. As Stoicism instructs, he accepted the reality, painful though it was, and chose to free himself from that dynamic. A Stoic approach never says you must endure endless disrespect in the name of virtue. It says remain calm, attempt dialogue, and if the other party refuses genuine accountability, you can decide whether to continue or to walk away with dignity. A fourth behavior that might reveal her lack of proper valuation is one of repeated emotional manipulation or guilt-tripping. Suppose each time you try to set a boundary, maybe you need space to see friends or time to work on a personal project, she reacts with dramatic accusations. "You don't really love me, you're abandoning me," or "If you cared about me, you'd do exactly what I say." In Stoic terms, a healthy relationship respects each partner's autonomy. While compromise is essential, manipulation that uses guilt or threats to override your legitimate needs points to a fundamental disrespect. She might not fling direct insults, but the manipulative tone is as damaging. A Stoic man might attempt gentle conversation, clarifying that love does not equate to total subjugation. But if she persists in linking every difference of perspective to your alleged lack of devotion, it undermines your sense of self. Over time, you become a prisoner of her emotional blackmail, ceding your personal growth or comfort out of fear of her outbursts. I recall a colleague who found himself repeatedly cancelling personal engagements, gym workouts, gatherings with old friends, because his girlfriend insisted that if he truly cared, he would be at her beck and call. Initially, he thought sacrificing his social life was a normal compromise, but Stoic reflection reminded him that a strong relationship fosters both mutual closeness and individual well-being. When he tried calmly to reassert boundaries, she escalated into emotional tirades. He soon recognized that she valued him only insofar as he fulfilled her demands. He parted ways, bearing sorrow, but also relief. That sorrow, from a Stoic vantage, is natural. Losing a bond is painful, but clinging to a manipulative dynamic out of fear of loneliness inflicts deeper harm. The Stoics advise that we weigh the long-term cost of surrendering our dignity against the short-term discomfort of leaving. True self-respect is not negotiable, so if repeated manipulation tramples your sense of autonomy, consider your Stoic prerogative to step aside. Let me continue with the fifth behavior, one that might appear as inconsistent or unreliable presence. She might promise support or shared responsibility, but when the moment arrives, she disappears or becomes conveniently unavailable. Or perhaps you schedule a meaningful event, introducing her to your family or inviting her to celebrate an important milestone, and she brushes it off with flimsy excuses. In Stoic terms, relationships require a form of synergy. Both parties invest effort to maintain closeness. If she rarely shows up for you, always prioritizing other matters or people, that pattern reveals she's not placing you in a position of genuine importance. I saw this happen to a man named Marcus, who had a partner that seemed enthusiastic in conversation, but consistently bailed out last minute. She claimed to care, yet never rearranged her schedule for him, never offered reciprocal support when he faced tough times. After a while, he acknowledged the Stoic truth. Words are cheap. Consistent action is what counts. If she can't be bothered to show up in tangible ways, she's not honoring him as an equal. Stoicism encourages letting go of illusions. Marcus eventually realized that clinging to her words while ignoring her deeds was a self-inflicted deception. He parted from that relationship more at peace with himself, resolved to find a partner who matched intent with consistent presence. Now, let me address a final behavior, one that might be the most overt, though it can also hide behind subtle justifications, outright disrespect or contempt. This can manifest as name-calling, ridiculing your interests or background, speaking down to you in front of others, or in more extreme forms, undermining your moral stance. As Stoic men, we do not require constant praise, but we do require a baseline of respect if the relationship is to be beneficial. If she flings insults in public or treats you as an inferior, that dynamic rots the bond from within. Sometimes men endure such contempt out of misguided Stoic passivity, thinking they must show forbearance. But Stoicism does not counsel letting oneself be a doormat. It urges that we remain calm, yes, but also that we do not voluntarily stay where our dignity is chronically violated. Consider the Stoic approach. Calmly discuss the matter. Express how certain words or actions degrade you. See if she acknowledges your viewpoint and adjusts. If contempt persists, it signifies a deep chasm in how she perceives your worth. The Stoics would say that continuing under such conditions erodes your moral and emotional health. A man's sense of self is not reliant on external adoration, but no man flourishes when treated as worthless by a supposed partner. As I told a friend who endured constant belittling from his girlfriend, Stoic endurance of external obstacles is noble, but Stoic submission to personal disrespect is self-defeating. He recognized that enabling her contempt was not virtuous. It was a betrayal of himself. Once he confronted her, she refused accountability, so he ended the bond. Painful though it was, it freed him to reclaim self-respect. Having laid out these 6 quietly destructive behaviors, let me remind you that they do not necessarily appear in bold strokes. Often they emerge gradually, each instance brushed aside as not a big deal. The Stoic perspective calls for clear-eyed observation. Do these patterns accumulate? Are you consistently feeling diminished, overshadowed, manipulated, or taken for granted? If so, address it calmly. Stoic calm means you do not lash out in blind fury, but neither do you cower in silence. You articulate the concern. You give room for change if she is willing to see your viewpoint. If she refuses or denies everything, you weigh your next step. Either accept ongoing disrespect or preserve your sense of worth by stepping away. Stoicism is not a set of rules, but a lens that clarifies that true companionship is based on mutual esteem. Without that, we are bargaining away something precious. Now let me share a personal anecdote that might tie these threads together. After the demise of my second marriage, the one where trivializing jabs slowly eroded my spirit, I spent a period alone, diving deeper into Stoic readings and reflection. I realized how, from a place of emotional hunger, and a need for external validation, I'd allowed subtle disrespect to fester. The Stoic thinkers admonished me that though I cannot force another to treat me well, I can control whether I remain in that environment or not. My error lay in ignoring the early signs. By the time I confronted them, resentment had hardened on both sides. So, in my subsequent relationship, I decided from the start to practice mindful awareness of how my partner and I treated each other. If she teased me, I noted whether it was light-hearted or laced with contempt. If she disagreed, I observed whether she listened to my viewpoint or steamrolled me with scorn. In turn, I also kept watch over my own behavior, ensuring I did not replicate any pattern of disregard. Lo and behold, that vigilance bore fruit. Within a few months, I recognized that my new partner, though not without flaws, consistently respected my perspective. If I expressed a concern, she took it to heart. If I told her of a success, she shared in my joy rather than overshadowing me. We built trust on the foundation of reciprocal acknowledgement. That is the beauty of Stoic reflection. It helps us see that the crux of a relationship is not perfect harmony or the absence of conflict, but the presence of genuine mutual respect, willingness to correct mistakes, and alignment in moral standpoint. When I compare that experience with the earlier one, where my needs and words were belittled, I see how transformative it is to notice those 6 behaviors early. One relationship left me feeling diminished, the other strengthened my sense of self. Both experiences taught me the crucial role of Stoic clarity. Let me close this first portion by reinforcing the Stoic idea that you hold power over your judgments and choices. If you see that she is not valuing you in the right way, via any combination of the behaviors I've outlined, no external force compels you to remain. You can weigh the costs of confronting or leaving. The key is not to yield to illusions that it will fix itself, or this is normal. Stoic acceptance means acknowledging what is, not clinging to fantasies. If you have calmly tried to address disrespect, trivialization, overshadowing, manipulation, or contempt, and she persists in those ways, you must consider your Stoic duty to your own integrity. That might be the hardest step, especially if feelings are strong or if you fear solitude. Yet Stoicism teaches that solitude is preferable to living in a constant state of disrespect that corrodes your moral core. You might ask, but is there hope she could change? Possibly, if she is open to introspection. But Stoic realism reminds us not to bank our entire well-being on reforming another's character. We can only invite them to see our perspective. If they refuse, then Stoic composure suggests we reorient ourselves toward a path that honors who we are. For men in the 25 to 65 bracket, entangled in complicated relationships or responsibilities, this can be daunting. But consider that your life, your finite years, deserve nurturing. Each day spent in a dynamic that saps your dignity is a day lost to illusions. That is the Stoic bottom line. Do not forfeit your tranquility to a bond that repeatedly injures your sense of rightful worth. If leaving feels too drastic, at least set firm boundaries. Show that you will not endure repeated disrespect. See how she responds. Her willingness to adjust or her refusal will speak volumes. Thus, we conclude the first segment of this extended reflection. I have, in broad strokes, described the half-dozen behaviors that strongly indicate a woman is not truly valuing you. We have also woven in a Stoic approach to perceiving them and deciding what to do. My hope is that you glean from these stories and principles a sense of clarity, so you do not remain trapped in illusions or in self-blame. In the next parts, I intend to delve deeper into how to practically navigate these revelations, how to approach conversations about respect, how to keep your composure if she reacts defensively, and how to align your moral compass so that, even if you must walk away, you do so without bitterness. For Stoicism teaches us that adversity, even in love, can refine our character if we face it with sincerity and courage. My friends, we reconvene to delve further into the subtle behaviors that reveal when a partner is not truly valuing you, and to explore how a calm, stoic mindset can guide you through the complexities that follow such recognition. In the first part, I shared personal stories and general observations of 6 quiet patterns, be they trivializing your words, overshadowing your achievements or struggles, refusing to apologize, resorting to manipulation, failing to show up reliably, or displaying outright disrespect. Each of these, in its own way, signals that she may not be invested in your well-being or personal dignity. Now, the question arises, how do we as men who perhaps grew up believing that we must always be strong providers, or that conflict should be either avoided or bulldozed over, address these relational dynamics with wisdom, self-respect, and empathy? Let me begin by recalling a time in my late 40s, a time when I believed I had found a stable footing in life. My career had achieved a certain plateau of success. My children were growing more independent. I had weathered a divorce in my earlier years and had done a fair bit of stoic reflection in its aftermath. There was a woman in my orbit, let us call her Livia, who exuded an effortless charm. Our early rapport was warm, even electrifying, but soon small hints emerged that mirrored some of the red flags I mentioned previously. If I expressed a worry or desire, she brushed it off with a dismissive tone. "That's nothing, you're fine." Or if I recounted a stressful day, she pivoted instantly to her own drama, overshadowing my experiences. At social events, she casually tossed out comments that left me feeling diminished, though she laughed it off as mere banter. I found myself uneasy, but I rationalized, surely I'm just oversensitive. I should be stoic about minor slights. What I learned, as the weeks became months, was that Stoicism does not advise silence in the face of repeated disrespect. It teaches that we should not be undone by external behaviors, but also that we must maintain clarity about them. So I made a choice. I would speak to her calmly, in a straightforward manner, explaining how her dismissive responses were affecting me. And that is precisely what I did one evening after dinner. Sitting across the table, I said, "I understand you may not mean harm, but I've noticed when I share concerns, you often seem to brush them aside. It leaves me feeling unheard, almost trivial in your world." How she responded revealed much about the relationship's potential. She became defensive, claiming I was too needy, too sensitive. Rather than acknowledging my perspective, she deflected. I kept calm, reiterated that I was not demanding constant attention, only a baseline sense that my words mattered. The more I tried to articulate my stance, the more she raised her voice, slinging subtle insults about my ego. By the end of that conversation, I realized that no matter how calmly I spoke, she was not prepared to consider my feelings. That was the Stoic moment of clarity. I recognized that her behavior was not a fluke, but a pattern rooted in how she viewed me. If she had truly valued me, she would at least have engaged in genuine dialogue, not ridiculed my attempt to set a boundary. In Stoic thought, this is where acceptance meets action. We accept that she chooses not to see us as we are, that she will not shift her dismissive stance, and we decide how to respond in a way that preserves our integrity. For me, the choice was eventually to step away from that dynamic. As painful as it was to let go, I recalled that Stoics do not cling to illusions for fear of loneliness. If a bond consistently undermines your sense of self, it is better to release it than to remain in a downward spiral of disrespect. Over time, the sorrow faded, replaced by gratitude that I did not invest more deeply in a relationship that stifled me. This anecdote underscores the Stoic principle of confrontation with calm. When you notice these subtle behaviors, like overshadowing your struggles or refusing to apologize, confront them in a measured tone, seeking mutual understanding. In an ideal scenario, she might not have realized how her words or actions impacted you, and might respond with contrition or compromise. That possibility is worth exploring, for many times we all act out patterns unconsciously, shaped by past experiences. If she receives your concerns with humility and empathy, it bodes well. But if she reacts defensively, belittles your perspective, or escalates hostility, you have your answer. She is not prepared to value you. Let's go deeper into how to conduct that confrontation stoically. First, pick a neutral time and setting, preferably when neither of you is exhausted or in the midst of an unrelated argument. Start by stating facts. When I shared about my day's stress, you changed the subject to your own news. This happened several times. It left me feeling invisible. Notice that Stoic communication avoids accusatory language like, "You never care about me," or "You always overshadow me." Instead, it focuses on specific observations and how they affected you. Second, express your feelings without dramatics. "I felt disappointed and unimportant." Third, invite her perspective. "Do you see any reason why this keeps happening? Is it something you've noticed too?" This opens a door to dialogue, rather than demanding immediate remorse. If in response she acknowledges the pattern, maybe saying, "I didn't realize I was doing that. Sometimes I get carried away with my own stories," then you can discuss ways to find balance. Perhaps she commits to asking about your day first, or pausing to hear your full account before switching topics. The Stoic approach welcomes such growth, for we are all imperfect. But if she denies it altogether, mocks your sensitivity, or accuses you of seeking pity, that's a sign she's unwilling to meet you halfway. In that scenario, Stoicism advises calm acceptance. "I see that you do not share my concern or wish to address it. I respect your choice, but I must also respect myself." That line of thought readies you for the next decision, whether to remain in a dynamic that disregards your boundaries. During this process, a common pitfall is losing your temper. If she reacts with hostility, you might feel your blood boil. Stoicism, of course, does not demand that you numb all emotions, but it counsels mastering them. Anger typically clouds judgment and leads to reciprocal attacks. Instead, remind yourself that you cannot force her to understand or care. Your power lies in stating your truth calmly, observing her reaction, and deciding from there. If she continues to lash out, you might say, "Let us pause this conversation. It's clear we're not finding a constructive path right now." Then walk away, upholding your composure. That is Stoic dignity in action. You do not have to degrade yourself by matching her aggression. Now, let me pivot to a nuanced point. Stoicism also helps you question whether your grievances might be distorted by your own insecurities. For instance, sometimes men who feel overshadowed might be dealing with personal envy or an exaggerated need for attention. If that is the case, Stoic reflection invites you to separate external reality from internal illusions. Maybe your partner is not trivializing you, but rather has her own burdens that overshadow your daily stories. Or perhaps her reluctance to apologize stems from a fear of conflict she learned in her upbringing, not from deliberate contempt. The Stoic method: examine yourself carefully, talk openly about it with her, see if mutual understanding can resolve the tension. If you discover that your frustrations stem from your own illusions or unrealistic demands, Stoicism urges you to realign, adjusting your perspective. But let us not conflate genuine illusions with a real pattern of disrespect. The key is repeated, consistent behaviors that degrade your sense of shared respect. If she seldom acknowledges your efforts, never reciprocates kindness, or always manipulates you with guilt, that points to more than just a misunderstanding. Men often remain in such relationships, hoping it might get better, or feeling that leaving would be unmanly or a betrayal of the vow to endure hardships. Yet Stoics draw a line between stoic endurance, bearing adversity that we cannot control, and masochistic entanglement in a harmful dynamic that we can choose to exit. Let me share a tale from a friend, Tullius, who for years believed that being a strong, loyal man meant absorbing all negativity from his partner without complaint. She frequently insulted him, blamed him for her emotional outbursts, and withheld affection to manipulate his behavior. Tullius told himself that real men do not whine about difficulties, that he should remain stoic. But he misunderstood Stoicism. He was confusing Stoic virtue with passivity. True Stoic virtue would have him calmly assess if his own well-being was being chronically harmed, if the relationship was unbalanced. If so, it's not giving up to walk away. It's recognizing that one should not abet the other's destructive patterns by continuing to be a punching bag. Tullius eventually recognized this after deep reflection. He confronted her calmly multiple times, receiving only escalations of abuse. At last, in stoic acceptance, he parted ways, choosing freedom over indefinite suffering. His post-separation peace of mind affirmed that he had made the right choice, for his mental health and dignity recovered steadily once he was out of that environment. Now, let me address men who worry about being labeled selfish or ego-driven when they demand respect. Some manipulative partners might indeed brand you as self-centered for asserting boundaries or wanting reciprocal attention. But Stoicism reminds us that self-care and self-respect are not arrogance. They are prerequisites for a stable relationship. Without them, you become an empty shell, giving endlessly until resentment grows. Meanwhile, the other person never learns to empathize, thinking she can monopolize the dynamic. A truly nurturing relationship fosters mutual support. She cares for you as you do for her. If you find yourself always giving, rarely receiving, and the moment you speak up, you are accused of vanity, take heed. That suggests a manipulative angle designed to keep you in subservience. Another dimension is how Stoicism regards one's sense of worth. We say a Stoic man's worth is not contingent on external approval or possessions, but that does not mean we let external parties degrade us. We can remain unshaken by insults if they're random or inconsequential. But in an intimate relationship, repeated disrespect is not inconsequential. It signals that the relationship might be a source of ongoing distress, overshadowing the potential for calm living. Part of Stoic wisdom is creating an environment that aligns with virtue, or at least does not corrode it. If she regularly tears you down, you are constantly battling negative energy that saps your stoic equanimity. The wise approach is to attempt resolution, but if resolution fails, to remove yourself from that toxic environment. Let me also talk about the perspective of acceptance. Sometimes men see these signs, like overshadowing or refusal to own mistakes, but cling to the hope that love or time will fix them. A Stoic might ask, is this a realistic hope, or is it an illusion? If she shows willingness to communicate, to reflect, and to genuinely change, that hope may be realistic. If she consistently dismisses your concerns, the hope is likely illusory. Acceptance here means accept the reality of who she is, not who you wish her to be. We men, especially in midlife, might entangle ourselves in fantasies of once we marry or once the kids come, she'll change. Stoicism calls us to see the present evidence. If she disrespects you now, there is no guarantee a future milestone will magically shift her nature. Accepting that harsh truth can be painful, but it spares greater pain down the line. One might ask how children factor into such decisions. Many men remain in strained relationships for the sake of kids, believing that Stoic duty demands they endure. This can be a noble stance if the disrespect is mild and can be navigated with boundaries, or if the overall environment remains functional for the children's well-being. But if the hostility or manipulation is severe, the home atmosphere might do more harm to children than a separation would. Stoicism would have you consider the bigger picture. Do you want your children to learn that a father endures open contempt, or that a father can calmly set a standard for mutual respect? Sometimes leaving an unhealthy dynamic can teach children about dignity and self-care. The old Stoic, who sees life as a series of moral choices, weighs not just immediate discomfort, but the long-term influence on everyone involved. Now, I want to share another personal reflection about how these 6 behaviors can intersect. Let me recall the latter stages of my second marriage. We had intangible friction that manifested in numerous small slights. Perhaps she overshadowed me in conversation, ridiculed my ambitions in front of others, and never acknowledged her part in any dispute. On top of that, she manipulated me into giving up certain friendships, claiming they threatened our union. Initially, I complied, wanting to preserve peace. But Stoic introspection eventually showed me that I was sacrificing meaningful connections for the sake of her insecurities, a dynamic that pointed to her not valuing my autonomy. In short, multiple behaviors converged, each feeding the other. I tried reason, calm discussions, even couples therapy. She mostly dismissed these efforts, insisting the problem was me. So I had to accept that Stoicism does not mean indefinite compliance with disrespect. Freed from illusions, I ended that marriage. The aftermath was emotionally taxing, but my sense of self rebounded once I was no longer under that persistent negativity. Allow me to highlight how the Stoic tradition frames relationships more broadly. Marcus Aurelius wrote of the importance of communal bonds, how we are meant to cooperate like hands and feet. But Stoicism also emphasizes that each person must manage their own moral domain. A loving partnership ideally fosters moral and emotional growth in both parties. If your partner tears you down, stifles your voice, manipulates your decisions, or consistently fails to treat you with respect, that partnership is not fulfilling its noble potential. Stoics would advise you to remain open to dialogue, but grounded in self-respect, not letting your longing for companionship overshadow your duty to preserve your moral and psychological well-being. You have now reached the halfway mark of the video. I congratulate you for trying to become a better version of yourself, and I also humbly ask you to leave a comment, as it helps my channel immensely. If you do not know what to comment, just write "better every day," so I know you reached this far. And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Also, I've linked some books on Stoicism that helped me become the man I am today, and will also help you achieve a Stoic mindset. Now, one might wonder, all right, I see these behaviors. I've tried talking, but she denies or deflects. I fear leaving will cause me heartbreak or disrupt my family. Is there a Stoic approach that helps me endure and fix it from within? My answer: Stoicism does not condone self-inflicted martyrdom if the other party is unresponsive. If you genuinely sense a chance for improvement, perhaps through therapy or a structured process of accountability, Stoics do encourage patience while giving such measures a try. But set a time frame or certain conditions. For instance, agree on counseling sessions. See if she invests wholeheartedly. If, after a set period, the destructive patterns remain, Stoic logic says it is time to protect your equilibrium. Prolonging a fruitless arrangement leads to bigger heartbreak for all. Let me also address men who, upon identifying these 6 signs, blame themselves, thinking, "I must have caused her to act this way." While personal responsibility is crucial, Stoics differentiate between what is and is not within your control. If you have done your best to treat her with respect, communicate and understand her viewpoint, and yet she persists in behaviors that disregard your dignity, the blame is not yours. You can examine whether your manner was abrasive or lacking empathy, sure. But Stoicism emphasizes not blaming ourselves for another's choice to demean or overshadow us. We can only correct our own faults, not force her to reciprocate. The Stoic stand is to remain humble about our own missteps, but not to assume guilt for her unwillingness to respect. In culminating this second part, let me remind you that real strength, from a Stoic vantage, is not about dominating a relationship or bragging about control. It's about mutual synergy, each partner reinforcing the other's well-being. If she does not see your value, the union is inherently unbalanced. Your Stoic duty is not to degrade yourself, nor to lash out in vengeance, but to calmly ascertain the dynamic and respond with reason and self-worth. That response can range from a heartfelt attempt at reconciliation to a firm exit if reconciliation fails. The Stoic approach helps you remain composed, avoiding the emotional roller coaster that might sabotage your future happiness. And so we edge toward the final portion of this discourse, where I will weave together a more direct Stoic strategy for dealing with each sign, how to respond, how to maintain composure, and how to carve a path forward that leaves your moral center intact, whether that path involves transformation of the relationship or its dissolution. Let me close this part by reaffirming the moral principle at stake. Stoicism cherishes the dignity of each person. If she does not share that view, if she routinely chips away at your dignity, no superficial bond can replace the deeper harm inflicted. Keep that in mind as we proceed. Your worth is not determined by her acknowledgement, but you do not have to remain where acknowledgement is perpetually denied. That is the Stoic posture of self-possession, calm, discerning, unwavering in your commitment to live free of manipulations or belittlement, no matter how strong your affection might be. Put simply, you deserve a partner who sees and honors your humanity as you see and honor hers. Anything less is not in alignment with Stoic virtue, nor with a healthy life. My friends, let us come together one last time to complete this lengthy contemplation on those behaviors that indicate she does not truly value you, weaving in the wisdom of Stoic philosophy and any other relevant insight that may help a man from his mid-20s to well past retirement age navigate these complexities. We have so far examined how small yet corrosive patterns, trivializing your concerns, overshadowing your experiences, refusing to accept fault, manipulating through guilt, neglecting consistency, and harboring outright contempt, can all signal a lack of genuine respect for who you are. We have also considered how a Stoic approach would have us address such issues calmly, test for willingness to change, and, if necessary, step away from the dynamic to preserve our dignity. Now, in this final part, let me attempt to unify these reflections into a pragmatic, step-by-step manner of responding when these signs become apparent. Let me begin by recalling a friend named Julius, who reached out to me in quiet desperation a few years back. He was a man of about 40, well established in his career, amicable, and deeply devoted to a woman who, by his own admission, displayed several of the red flags we have enumerated. She constantly overshadowed his stories with grand tales of her own, rarely apologized, even when her words cut him to the quick, and frequently belittled his ambitions, calling them childish dreams. Despite his best efforts to shrug it off or talk sense into her, nothing improved. Yet Julius loved her. He wanted to believe that beneath her dismissive exterior, there was a soul who cherished him. He was torn. Remain in a draining environment or walk away from a bond that he had poured so much into. It was there that he sought my counsel, and I, in turn, leaned on the Stoic tradition. For Stoicism teaches that we should not act out of fear, whether fear of loneliness or guilt, but from a clear-eyed assessment of reality. Let me share the steps we jointly developed, which might illuminate a path for you if you find yourself in a similar quagmire. Step 1. Quietly observe and document before any direct confrontation. Julius decided to observe her behavior meticulously for a set period, say 4 weeks. He kept a small journal, nothing elaborate, where he noted instances when she dismissed his concerns or overshadowed him, how she responded to conflict, whether she showed up when needed or apologized for genuine errors. This was not done in a spirit of building a legal case, but of clarifying the pattern. Often, when emotions run high, we overstate or understate the frequency of certain behaviors. By calmly tracking them, Julius replaced vague discomfort with concrete observations. In Stoic terms, this is akin to examining the reality of a situation without immediate judgment. We can accept that we might be mistaken about how often these slights occur, or we might be underestimating them. Observation cuts through illusions. At the end of the 4 weeks, Julius saw that such dismissive incidents happened multiple times a week. She seldom took accountability, and indeed her presence in supporting his ventures was inconsistent. The written record stiffened his resolve that this was not a trivial matter, it was a genuine, persistent pattern. Step 2. Reflect on your own contributions and standards. Next, Julius examined himself. Stoicism teaches that we should first correct our own errors before chastising others. Could it be that Julius was overly sensitive or sought disproportionate validation? Did he trivialize her experiences in a mirrored way, prompting her to respond similarly? A thorough self-check is key. If we find that our own behavior fosters a cycle of disrespect, we must own that part. Yet in Julius's introspection, he realized he had always tried to listen attentively, celebrate her successes, and even accommodate her moods. He was not guiltless in every quarrel, but he did not see a pattern of overshadowing or belittling her. Moreover, Stoicism reminds us that having personal needs for attention or emotional support is not a flaw in itself. Humans are social beings who crave mutuality. So he concluded that his requests for acknowledgement were reasonable, not an inflated sense of entitlement. Simultaneously, he clarified his standards. What does a respectful partnership look like for him? He realized it entailed openness to each other's viewpoints, shared excitement in each other's victories, apologies when harm is done, and a sense that both parties' voices matter. By reaffirming these non-negotiable values, Julius sharpened his awareness that, objectively, she was not meeting them. This is crucial. Stoic philosophy encourages each of us to define what virtue and respect mean in practical terms, so we can measure reality accordingly. Step 3. Initiate a calm, structured dialogue. Armed with his observations and self-reflection, Julius chose a suitable time, an evening after both had finished work, not in the midst of a heated argument, to say, "I would like us to talk about something important. Can we find a quiet hour to do so?" He avoided springing the conversation on her unexpectedly, or when either was drained. She agreed, albeit with some curiosity. He began by acknowledging her positive traits. Stoics do not ignore the good in someone. He mentioned her intelligence, her passion for her goals. Then he transitioned to describing what he had observed, referencing specific instances. "Last week, I tried to tell you about a milestone at my job, but before I could finish, you told me it was nothing compared to what your friend accomplished, and the conversation shifted. That happened again the following day, when I shared a personal challenge. He was factual, not accusatory. He expressed how this pattern left him feeling disregarded. He also pointed out how in a recent conflict, she denied any wrongdoing, even though he explained how her words hurt him. Again, he was precise, citing the Stoic principle that clarity of fact fosters constructive dialogue. He then posed open-ended questions. Have you noticed this? How do you feel about these observations? Do you see a way we can address it? This approach invited her perspective rather than cornering her with blame. In a Stoic sense, the goal was to spark mutual understanding, not to win a debate. Julius made sure to remain calm, even if she became defensive. Step 4. Gauge her willingness to understand and adjust. The critical moment came in how she responded. If she had said, "I didn't realize I was doing that, but I see how it could hurt you. Let's figure out a better way for us to communicate," then Julius might have hope. The Stoic counsel is that people can change if they acknowledge an issue and genuinely commit to shifting. But what if she refused? In Julius's case, she largely brushed his points aside, saying he was overthinking, that real men don't need constant praise, that she was just being herself. She did not express remorse or interest in meeting his needs. She turned the conversation around to paint him as the problem. Stoicism here advises acceptance of reality. Julius saw clearly that she was not open to modifying her behavior or even recognizing his emotional perspective. He gave a second attempt a week later, again receiving no willingness to introspect. There are times, of course, when a single conversation might not suffice, especially if tensions run high. But if repeated calm attempts yield only denial or ridicule, Stoic logic says the relationship dynamic is unlikely to shift. You cannot control her choices, only your own. Step 5. Decide whether to stay or leave, anchored in reason and self-respect. Having confronted her, found no genuine engagement, Julius faced the fork in the road. Remain in a bond where his dignity and emotional needs were consistently sidelined, or depart to preserve his Stoic equilibrium. This is never easy. Emotions, history, and hopes can chain a man to an unhealthy situation. But Stoic reasoning reminds us that if the environment persistently violates our moral standards and emotional well-being, enduring it indefinitely corrodes our soul. For some men, the cost of leaving might be high: shared finances, children, communal ties. But Stoic reflection balances those external complexities against the internal harm of constant disrespect. Sometimes a man might choose to remain with specific coping boundaries if other factors outweigh the negatives. But if no path exists to rectify the dynamic, Stoicism endorses liberation. Julius chose to leave. Heartache followed, but he reported feeling a strange relief that he was no longer walking on eggshells or being dismissed. This leads to a crucial Stoic afterthought. Departing an unvaluing relationship may feel like failure in the short term, but if done with clarity and calm, it can be a triumph of self-preservation and moral firmness. Indeed, Stoicism does not measure success by maintaining every bond at any cost, but by preserving one's virtue, reason, and serenity. Maintaining composure during the aftermath. Once a decision is made, whether to continue working on the relationship or to part ways, additional Stoic principles come into play. Suppose you leave. The emotional aftermath might tug at you, urging second-guessing or guilt. Stoicism advises that we not torment ourselves over what cannot be undone. If you tried honest communication and it failed, accept that result. Let yourself grieve the loss of potential, but do not feed bitterness or regret. Instead, Reflect. What did the relationship teach you about yourself and your boundaries? The Stoic approach transforms adversity into instruction. You become more attuned to subtle red flags for future relationships and more steadfast in communicating your needs early on, avoiding protracted heartbreak. What if you remain in the relationship believing there is scope for improvement? Then Stoicism teaches consistent vigilance and compassion. You do not assume immediate perfection. You note small positive changes in how she handles your feelings or apologizes when wrong. You also hold yourself accountable for showing equal respect. If the changes stall or revert to old patterns, you calmly revisit the conversation, but do not remain silent or passive. Stoicism is not passivity. It is engaged presence guided by virtue. By checking in regularly, you keep the dynamic transparent. If she truly wants to value you, she will participate in this ongoing effort. If not, you will spot the signs early enough to reconsider. Turning inward. Cultivating inner fortitude. Another vital piece is that while you navigate her behaviors, you also cultivate your own inner resources. Stoic practice, daily reflection, negative visualization, mindfulness of emotional triggers, fortifies you so that you do not collapse under her potential manipulations or dismissals. For example, if you see that her overshadowing of your successes triggers self-doubt, you can remind yourself that external validation, while pleasant, is not the core of your identity. You can recenter on your personal growth, recalling that your worth does not hinge on her acknowledgement. This makes you less likely to react with anger or desperate pleas. Instead, you calmly state that you feel overshadowed, and if she persists, you accept that dynamic as her choice and respond by setting boundaries. In short, Stoic self-sufficiency does not negate the need for respectful treatment. It ensures you do not tie your entire self-esteem to her behavior. During all this, you might seek the counsel of trusted friends or mentors, ensuring you are not blinded by your own biases. Stoicism values reasoned dialogue with wise companions. Explain your situation, ask them if you are overreacting, or if indeed her behaviors are a problem. Their perspective can check any illusions you might harbor. This is not about seeking gossip or one-sided validation, but about gleaning honest feedback. If multiple trusted individuals confirm they see signs of disrespect, that corroborates your Stoic analysis. The Stoics never claimed you must solve everything alone. They simply cautioned that final responsibility lies with you, yet you can listen to rational voices around you. Dealing with potential manipulative backlash. One scenario many men fear is that once they confront or threaten to leave, she might escalate manipulation, crying, accusing, promising change without follow-through, or even publicly smearing your character. Stoicism prepares you for such outcomes by reminding you that others' reactions lie beyond your control. If she tries to slander you among mutual friends, remain calm. Let your consistent integrity speak louder than her accusations. Over time, false smears often unravel, especially if you do not engage in petty retaliations. Stoic philosophy teaches that we should not degrade ourselves by sinking into vindictive feuds. We hold our head high, correct the record gently if needed, but do not dwell in bitterness. In such storms, your unflinching composure can itself be a testimony to your moral stance. Rebuilding after a difficult split. Should it come to the end of a relationship, Stoicism also counsels on how to move forward. You might feel tempted to rebound swiftly or numb your pain in distractions. But Stoicism suggests a period of reflective solitude, absorbing lessons from the experience. What red flags did you ignore early on? Where did you fail to communicate boundaries soon enough? Did you lean too heavily on external validation for your sense of worth? This is not about berating yourself, but about using adversity as a mirror for self-growth. During this period, you might refine your Stoic practice, doubling down on journaling or meditative stillness to process grief. Over time, you gradually open yourself to healthier connections, better equipped to spot potential pitfalls and articulate your needs from the outset. Stoicism also allows space for gratitude amid sorrow. Even a toxic relationship might have brought some good memories or taught you important truths. A Stoic sees that life is complex, rarely purely black or white. By holding gratitude for the glimpses of warmth, you resist the urge to demonize her entirely. You can let go without hatred, recognizing that people have flaws shaped by their histories. This perspective guards you from cynicism. Stoics aim to remain compassionate even when parting ways, understanding that cruelty often arises from ignorance or unresolved pain in the other person. Yet compassion does not mean tolerating ongoing harm. This is a delicate line. If she tries to re-enter your life with the same dismissive patterns, Stoicism says you can kindly but firmly enforce your boundary, stating you will not re-engage unless genuine respect is shown. One can be compassionate from a distance, wishing her well, but not sacrificing one's own mental health. This is the Stoic concept of mindful benevolence, love for humanity without entangling yourself in destructive dynamics. Let me also address how these lessons ripple into future relationships. If you exit a situation where she devalued you, Stoic reflection ensures you do not carry resentment into your next bond or become paranoid that every woman will act similarly. Instead, you set clear standards early on. You observe how a potential partner handles disagreements, whether she listens to your feelings or trivializes them. You stay alert for manipulative tendencies, but you also remain open-hearted, not condemning every new person for your past heartbreak. Stoicism encourages a balanced posture, vigilant but not jaded, wise but still capable of trust. Over time, you may find a partner who not only avoids these red flags, but actively supports your emotional and moral growth, a union that fosters mutual flourishing, exactly the kind of bond Stoic philosophers praise as a true synergy of souls. Lastly, let me speak of how we might pass these lessons on to younger men or peers who could be trapped in similar patterns, but lack the insight to articulate their discomfort. We can share our Stoic framework, identify the signs of disrespect, calmly address them, see if there's a willingness to change, and if not, have the courage to leave or set firm boundaries. Encourage them to keep emotional diaries, reflect on Stoic teachings, and maintain a circle of trusted mentors. By spreading this Stoic wisdom, we reduce the incidence of men languishing in silent misery, believing they must man up by enduring emotional neglect or abuse. True manliness from a Stoic vantage is about moral steadiness and the courage to act upon one's convictions, including the conviction that one deserves fundamental respect in a partnership. In conclusion, these 6 behaviors we've detailed: refusal to hear your voice, overshadowing your experiences, never apologizing or admitting fault, using manipulation or guilt, failing to show consistent presence, and outright contempt, each undermine the very basis of a healthy relationship. Stoicism calls us to face such behaviors with calm clarity, to attempt sincere dialogue, and to protect our self-respect if that dialogue fails. We do this not from anger or vengeance, but from the Stoic principle that no external tie is worth forfeiting our moral and psychological harmony. This final recognition is both daunting and liberating. It tells us we need not remain chained to disrespect for fear of loneliness or social stigma. Instead, we can navigate these waters with rational dignity, trusting that either the relationship transforms into something mutual or we find our way to a path free of corrosion. That is the heart of the Stoic strategy. We see reality as it is, not as we wish it to be, and we respond with virtue, self-control, and compassion. We do not war against her or ourselves. We acknowledge each person's agency. If she wills not to respect us, we do not degrade ourselves by clinging. If she is open to reflection and growth, we welcome that and forge a deeper bond. In either outcome, we preserve our Stoic center, emerging stronger, wiser, and more aligned with the ideals of a life well lived. May these reflections guide you, dear men, wherever you stand in love's shifting landscape. May you never settle for less than fundamental respect, and may you carry forward the Stoic torch of clarity and poise into all your relationships, uplifting both yourself and those worthy of your trust. Now, if any part of this message has been helpful to you, leave us your like and comment, helping the algorithm recommend it to someone who needs it at this time. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos. And if you look through the videos we've already uploaded, you're sure to find something to take with you. Have a good day.